I remember when these were new and I wanted one so bad. They are really, really cool. Let's take a look at this sweet RSX. And this isn't just any RSX, it is the RSX-S, a 2003 model, which has a little bit more power and a higher red line. And it does have VTEC, yo. It definitely does. It's in for some airbag issues. It's also in for what the customer describes, the engine feels like it's dieseling or running really rough at idle. And we'll show you what we found on that. But first, let's take a look around this really sweet Acura. As you guys can see, the headlamps are not stock. There's some aftermarket units, but they look pretty good on this car. It does appear that maybe some of the front body has been repainted, maybe the hood and these fenders, but it looks very well matched, very good. These are the back in the year of 16-inch wheels. Those were the upgrade from the 15s, or some people had 14s on their cars. You guys remember that. It does have a little bit of paint peeling on the rear spoiler, but that's typical with the age of this car. The emblems are missing. Maybe it got heat or hot and made the adhesive fall off. I'm not sure what happened there, but you can see it said RSX-S. And down that side, equally as nice. It's a little dusty, but really it shows pretty good. Let's jump into the interior.
So ladies and gents, this is the Ninja Turtle edition as well. So if we look here, he even has a little bobbly little head. No, just kidding. Just a fun little addition in there. I would turn it on, but I can't. Battery's disconnected. But it would say in that dash somewhere, 150-ish thousand miles, somewhere around there. And we're going to see a little bit of that wear in the interior today. Our dash is in really nice shape. No cracks, no breaks, nothing like that. So it's looking like it's doing good so far. As we move down, you'll see that it has nice louver vents. And those are my favorite because they can make sure every spot is hit. You can't not find that spot where you want to get cold or hot. Simple controls on our HVAC system. As we move down, they have upgraded the radio to a Pioneer system, which looks definitely probably a much better addition than what was originally in the car. Moving down farther, you'll see that we have a spot for power. We've got some change going on. As I move back, you'll see, if I cover up the light, you can see imprinted on this gear selector what makes this car absolutely fun and makes it the S edition. Notice it goes beyond 5, it goes to 6-speed manual transmission. That's what makes this car an absolute blast to drive. As we move back, nothing fancy, just got our parking brake, tiny little cup holder, and a little spot, I guess, literally to hold your pens, and maybe a stick of gum. Door cards are in great shape. Seats, this is where they are showing some wear. So we see a little bit of wear there, and on the driver's seat here, it definitely looks like what Hoovy would have called a Taco Tuesday moment, and ooh, I was sitting there, yikes. Back seat is in really good condition. Doesn't show the wear and tear that we saw in the front. We do see what they have, a nice little Snoopy blanket and a nice little shade to keep that dash from getting too hot. So that's probably why they have kept that dash in the shape that it is. Back shelf is looking in really good shape as well, and that headliner, no marks, no rips, no tears, no Cheeto fingers. As we get back to our steering wheel, we have some very simple controls here for our cruise control, but you can see we do have some wear on the top of our steering wheel, obviously, because that's where they are holding it 90% of the time. So a little bit of wear there, but nothing that a steering wheel cover could not cover up. So enough of this interior talk. Let's go see what's this airbag issue all about.
So it came in with an SRS airbag light on. We hooked up our Autel scan tool and scanned for codes, and we found codes saying basically that the SRS control module had an internal failure. It was basically dead. The customer did supply us with a good used one or rebuilt one or something like that, and this is what it looks like. Just a little module here. So we're going to get into replacing that with what the customer supplied, and we may have to program it, which we do have that capability here with our Autel scan tool. That will very likely take care of the airbag light, but the customer had a second concern, that it feels like a diesel, like it's shaking, or they're hearing like a dieseling noise while it's idling. Let's go ahead and get the hood open on this thing. No, it didn't show up that way. We had the valve cover off because what we found with the issue was it hadn't had a valve adjustment that they could recall ever. And it's got almost 150,000 miles on it.
Wait, a valve adjustment? That doesn't sound like normal for a modern day car.
Honda did have these on the K-Series engines. You still do valve adjustments on them, as you can see here. There's a standard screwdriver, or some people call it a flat screwdriver. You unlock the lock nut there and you can make your adjustments with the actual rocker arm there. And you would adjust them to the proper specification using these feeler gauges. Danielson's actually going to be doing that. He's actually already checked a few, and some of them are so tight. They're really tight. Like, I bet when this engine's fully warmed up, some of the valves may not even be fully closing, and that can cause issues, possibly damage. So, we're going to get that all set back to the proper specification, and that should take care of the rough running feeling that it has. While we're here, we have the spark plugs out. Danielson actually put the Techlong camera into each of the spark plug holes, just to see what things look like, and everything looks very clean and very nice in there. So we don't have any issues there, but a lot of people say the word, it hit the VTEC, yo, or it kicked in the VTEC, or different things like that. But there's more to it than just VTEC on the intake cover. It's an actual technology. There's something to it. Let me show you how it works. So under normal running, up to a certain RPM, it uses these two outer cam lobes. You can see the center one's way taller, like quite a bit taller. But that one doesn't do anything until the VTEC solenoid kicks in and allows oil pressure down to this little lifter that I'm touching there, and fills it with oil, and then it gets solid. So now this big lobe is pushing on this little roller and pushing all of them down even further than it was when it was just running on these two. So it gets much more air into the engine. This is the K20Z1 engine, which being the S model, it has a lot more power. The standard base engine would have about 155 horsepower. That's 6,500 RPMs roughly. The S model, or this Z1 engine, revs so much more. That's where they get the extra power. It has 201 horsepower at 7,800, almost 8 grand. That's really high. It's really good. They didn't get much torque out of it. On the base model at 4,000 RPMs, it was 139 pound-feet of torque. On this Z1 engine, at 7,000 RPMs, it has 140 pounds of torque. One more pound of torque is all it has. But really, they were going after horsepower. When you're going up that high in the range, you're looking for horsepower, and it did get almost 50 more horsepower, so not bad. We did recommend to the customer that the motor mounts are looking pretty worn. We'll take a look at those real quick. Right where my flashlight is, where it's really bright, I'll move my light away. You'll see a bolt there. That's actually the rear motor mount. It's sagging pretty deeply. Here we have the front motor mount, and it's sagging a little bit. It should be a little bit more conical shaped. It has got some miles on it. And you can see the front of the engine, or the front of the car, not really the front of the engine. There's a motor mount down there as well, and it's also sagging in its socket pretty deeply. The engine doesn't have any leaks. It doesn't have any other issues with the vehicle. We're not going to really put it up in the air because Danielson has this set just right so he can start doing the valve adjustments. I don't want to move the car or mess it up or do anything like that. So we're going to leave it set just like it is. Like I said, we told the customer about the valve adjustment, and very likely the motor mounts could be transmitting some vibration as well. The customer did decline the motor mounts and said, we're not interested in the motor mounts, but go ahead and do the valve adjustment. Most cars today, you don't have to do valve adjustments on. It's just really a high performance engine is what this is. They want to get everything dialed in just perfect and try to get max power out of it and everything. So most cars today have hydraulic lifters that use oil pressure to set the valve lash to basically zero, and everything works just fine that way. You don't have to get in and do adjustments. You don't have to mess with it. Really, like motorcycles and some high performance engines, kind of like the Murcielago that's behind me, definitely has valve adjustments that need to be set. Like I said, this one hasn't had it done since who knows when. We'll get that taken care of. It very likely will solve the weird dieseling sound or feel. There may be a little bit left over from the motor mounts. The customer will have to drive it and decide if they want to go any further and dive into the motor mounts or not. The valve adjustments on these are like 80, 90,000 miles, maybe 100. Somewhere in there, you need to be looking at a valve adjustment. This one's a little bit late, not like terribly late, like it's got 280,000 miles on it, But it's definitely time to get it done. As Danielson was measuring, he saw, like I said, some of them are getting really tight. Where the specification's at a certain amount and he can't even get that feeler gauge in there. So it's getting pretty tight. What can happen if you just ignore the valve adjustments, which can happen definitely on the Murcielago, is that the distance between the rocker arm and the tip of the valve gets so tight, it won't even let the valve close all the way. So you got combustion gases going up in the intake, and there's a lot of things going on that should not be going on. It can actually burn your valves and cause damage. So if you have one of these cars, definitely an RSX or Hondas, I know Hondas are known for valve adjustments, you definitely want to check your owner's manual and see what's specified there for the valve adjustment. Don't skip on it. Say, oh, it's running fine. I don't need to mess with that. That's just money I don't need to spend. Yes, you do need to spend it. Because if you don't, you could hurt your engine. So definitely check what's going on with your particular car. So like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, how many of you guys can remember when these first came out? I don't remember the first year, 03. I think this might be the first year. They were so cool. I'd see these things driving on the highway with their cool scalloped headlights, and it's like, man, that is sweet. I would love to have one of those someday. They're getting long in the tooth now. They've got some miles on them, some age on them, but they're still a really cool car. They're very fun to drive, especially with the 6-speed that's on this S model. Really, really fun. Although, I don't drive manuals anymore. But if you do? I do? Yeah. I have arthritis in my knees and also in my hips and my lower back. It's from working on cars for over 25 years. That's what's done it. So, manuals are not my thing anymore because of that. But if you're into manuals, this is a very fun car to drive. It revs to the moon. You can really run through the gears on this thing. Really, really fun. So before this car left, I definitely want to show you guys, it had an SRS light on, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. You can get into trouble where the modules failed. You finally put a new module in, and just to be able to find out, okay, so now the module works. Now I can see things. This is the module speaking, by the way. Now I can see things. I can see that your 2 or your 3 of your sensors are bad. You didn't know that until you get the module replaced. And now you're calling the customer saying it's going to cost more money now. You have to be aware of that when those situations arise. But that wasn't the case here. Everything seems to be going pretty well. I think we'll just get it replaced and it'll be just fine. We'll get the valve adjustment done. Should take care of any rough feeling in the engine. And this will be out the door. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on this RSX or any other car in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut if you purchase anything, and we really appreciate it. Check out Mrs. Wizard's Ways as well. She's got some good content going on her channel. There's a link in the description below for that as well. And make sure to hit the subscribe button here because we have tons more videos for you guys. Thanks for watching.